Hello to you and welcome to Campaign Chronicles, France 24's regular countdown to the presidential election. With 6 weeks to go, the contenders are in the ring and the gloves, well, they're well and truly off. Coming up in the show this week, Sarkozy goes all in to turn around his poll deficit, but the big question, is it enough? It's a French election, but it'll have Europe-wide ramifications. What do Germans really think about the vote? And Faces and Places meets a Labour lawyer whose business is good because the economy is bad. So Nicolas Sarkozy trying to fight back and make some inroads in the polls. But this week he's admitted that if he loses the presidential election, he's not going to hang around.
The people no longer have confidence in me. Do you really believe that I should continue in politics? The answer is no. In life, one must be committed, to commit himself fully and totally. I tell the people that I will fight to earn their confidence in any way that I can, to protect you, to lead you, to build a strong France. But if that is not their choice, then I will bow out after having a wonderful career in politics.
Nicolas Sarkozy there. Well, our French politics editor Mark Parriman with us here on set. Mark, I remember speaking to you a couple of weeks ago here on France 24. In fact, you said Sarkozy had to make inroads in the polls within 2 weeks. It is 2 weeks now. Sarkozy there is kind of admitting that defeat is a possibility almost, do you think?
Well, that's a very strange declaration, especially for a politician in France. Usually politicians are, quote, professional politicians, meaning they never give up politics, and Nicolas Sarkozy is considered as one. So there are two interpretations. Either it's the panic button. He really feels the weight of the polls that are still down for him. He hoped that he would have caught up with his rival, socialist François Hollande, at this time, but this hasn't happened. He's still behind in the first round, and there's a tremendous gap between them in the second round, like 15 percentage points. And so his supporters are saying, well, if he's considering life after politics, it means that he's already figured out that he will lose. The other interpretation, and it's probably the right one, is Nicolas Sarkozy is trying to show a more human face, that he's not a political addict, that he's not the president of the rich people, that he also did last week admitted making mistakes, some missteps. He's said to be writing a book of confessions, and so he's trying to make it very personal and trying to tell the French, you know, I'm here to serve you, and, you know, if you don't want me, I will go, but trust me, I'll be there. He has a major, maybe the biggest rally of his campaign this Sunday near Paris. He's making proposals right and left on every issue. So clearly, he's not indicating that he's already lost, but he's trying to focalize people on him because his rival has been very good at having the initiative. So Nicolas Sarkozy is really trying to make sure that he's a more human face, not this robotic politician that's been caricatured by many in the media, including.
Mark Parriman, thanks very much. That's Mark Parriman there, our French politics editor. Well, next we're going to take a look at the French election from a foreign perspective. Some might say it's never been more European. Of course, we've had Angela Merkel lending her support to Nicolas Sarkozy, and she's even been accused of leading a coalition of European conservatives to snub François Hollande. Well, with us now from Berlin, our correspondent Jessica Saltz. Firstly, Jessica, I gather Angela Merkel's favouritism of Sarkozy's led to some problems at home, in fact.
Absolutely. Voices of concern and worry over this coming out almost daily from German parliamentarians. Most recently, Sigmar Gabriel, who's one of the leaders of the SPD, the left-wing party here, told Spiegel magazine that Angela Merkel is potentially endangering German interest by so demonstratively showing that she would be unwilling to work together with Hollande were he to come to power. And it's not only the German socialists who are riled by this. One of the leaders of the Green Party, Jürgen Trittin, also emphasised that the Franco-German relationship should be a friendship between the peoples of both countries and should be independent of who they vote in to rule the countries. And also Merkel's own coalition government has concerned about her snubbing of Hollande and staunch support of Sarkozy. Guido Westerwelle, who's the foreign minister and a Liberal Party member, has reiterated constantly over recent weeks that the German government is not a French political party. It has no place in French politics and shouldn't be meddling. I think his words certainly echoing what many of the French socialists are feeling right now.
So, Jessica, if Nicolas Sarkozy does go, where does it leave Merkel with Hollande? Because she's going to have to work with him, isn't she?
Absolutely, and many here are worried that Angela Merkel is playing a very dangerous game by so publicly snubbing Hollande, and the German government here had to do some serious damage control earlier in the week to negate claims made by Der Spiegel magazine that she's actually working hard to try and convince other conservative European leaders to turn their back on the socialist candidate. But of course, she will have to work with him if he comes to power, and I think this just goes to show how desperate she is to keep Sarkozy in power. This is, of course, the man with whom she's worked together over the last couple of years, and has alongside her for ideas of austerity across Europe and to introduce this fiscal pact within Europe. We know Hollande has been quite vocal, saying that he would challenge Merkel's fiscal pact were he to come to power. He is against, for example, the debt breaks that she wants to impose on countries who don't keep their fiscal houses in order, and he would also like to see Eurobonds introduced, which would see pooling of Eurozone debt, which we know is something that the German Chancellor is absolutely dead against. So certainly she would have a very hard time working with Hollande were he to come to power, and this explains why, of course, she is standing right shoulder to shoulder against Sarkozy on his re-election campaign.
Jessica, thanks very much. Jessica Sortzer, our correspondent in Berlin. Now then, let's take a look at the news in brief from the campaign trail.
This week's political controversy has François Fillon's name all over it. On Monday, the Prime Minister said this.
I think religions should think about holding on to their traditions, but there are ancestral traditions that no longer correspond to much today, even if they were important for hygiene in the past.
Fillon's interview inadvertently helped Marine Le Pen. She had said she was shocked by the quantity of halal and kosher foods in France, a stance that has religious leaders up in arms. The Prime Minister is now trying to put out a fire he helped create by meeting with Jewish and Muslim leaders. The Loup-Ouvrier's Nathalie Arthaud is the first official candidate of the election. She handed in her 521 signatures to the French Constitutional Council. Right behind, the Socialist Party's Jacques Cheminade handed in 538. The other candidates have until March 16th. Jean-Luc Mélenchon is still full of surprises. In this week's opinion polls, he passed the symbolic 10% of the vote. You could even say he's on the up and up. At his meetings, the crowds go wild. After François Hollande's 75% tax for the uber-rich, this week Nicolas Sarkozy came out with his own tax proposals, targeting France's richest companies, the CAC 40. He took the opportunity to say that he is neither the president nor the candidate of the wealthy. Sarkozy also said he wants immigration in France to be cut in half.
Now, we've got a tweet of the week for you now. Great one, this. It's actually from François Hollande's partner, Valérie Trierweiler. It's after Paris Match, the news magazine that she actually works for, ran a story about her life with the socialist candidate. The article calling her his charming secret weapon. She says she was rather shocked to discover the front page of her own paper, and to make it even worse, she wasn't even warned. Do wonder what her colleagues made of that one. Now it's time for Faces and Places. France 24's rendezvous with French voters. Our subject today is Gilles in Nantes. He's a lawyer, and the plight of his clients, aggrieved workers, taking their employers to court, demonstrates one big change in modern society. It is that money talks.
Gilles Renaud is preparing to defend a client. He's been a lawyer for 23 years and believes legal help in France is becoming inaccessible. He says recent legal reforms don't conform with the mission to provide a public service.
First of all, I think the judicial reform deprived a lot of people access to a local court. And then recently there was an announcement that people have to pay 35 euros for legal assistance to defend their rights. That to me is an obstacle to justice, which should be a public service, free and accessible to all.
Dis donc, j'ai vu que les dates des collégiales, c'était à partir de septembre.
Specialising in employment law, Gilles usually acts for people accusing former employers of unfair dismissal. He's an increasing number of high-flying executives on his books. Gilles has noticed deteriorating conditions in every workplace, often because of a new type of management that's increasingly motivated by profit.
The loss of human contact in the workplace is deeply worrying. People are under more and more pressure. They end up with their spirits broken and sometimes force their subordinates to endure the same pressure that they're dealing with, which creates a whole atmosphere of suffering.
Gilles lives in this converted church. He knows he's lucky to have above-average living conditions. He works closely with organisations that help homeless or unemployed people to get on their feet, and he's seen how public spending cuts are taking their toll.
What scares me is the financial situation of some companies I'm working with now. It might be useful to evaluate the efficiency of some staff members, but the feeling you get now is that these evaluations are done indiscriminately. The aim might be to cut costs, but it might be better to make more targeted savings.
Gilles doesn't expect much will change after the presidential election, but he says he'll continue to help people get through some of the most difficult periods of their lives.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Do, though, check out our Facebook account. The address just coming up for you on screen any second now, I hope. Do let us know what you think. See you soon for more Campaign Chronicles. That's it from us. See you soon.